teacher, so I try to be on time as much as possible. And, getting everybody together is always good to have it on time. So she says it's 7, I've got 7, that clock looks fast, doesn't it?
Looks like it fast.
Well, I'm Angie Morthland. I am the corresponding vice president, whatever I am, of the Mackinaw Area Historical Society. I am honored to introduce our speaker, but before we do, we have Sandy Planasek in the house, our current president of the Historical Society. We have Roy Cole behind the camera. Hi, Mom. We have Leanne all over there at Zoom. Everybody in Zoom, we're going to say hi to you. We have Patrick over here, who's another one of our amazing docents, juggler, mower, jack of all trades. We've got Donna Fowler in the back over here, who's amazing cookie hostess always. Carla, do not think I'm going to forget the two of you because I'm coming back to you. Carla Wolf is another one of our patrons, helps with all around the Heritage Village and is part of our board. And Marianne is our secretary, and Marianne Moore will write everything down you say. Just kidding. And Frank, who is the clipboard Nazi, the clipboard gentleman today. Following orders. We are excited about our lecture series. We only have one more of this year, but we have this one, and then we have one in November. That'll be the Dixie Saloon, and that's the second Monday in November. In October is our annual meeting, and we're really excited. It's amazing that we're able to get together. You'll get to sit with all the board. It's the same date as a speaker would be, but you get to talk to the board members this time, and we all get to share with you what we've done over the year, and then invite you all to be a part of it for next year. And then in December, we have Christmas in the Village, which is the first Saturday in December. That's when we get to decorate the chapel. All, I would say, a vintage-looking Christmas, not tinsel, no tinsel, no. And then we get to have a non-denominational service then. So those are the upcoming events that we have. Did I tap enough? Anybody else coming in?
We gave them time.
Okay, good. So without further ado, I am honored, and my sweet tooth is so pleased to honor this. This is Paul Stemkowski. His wife Vicki is here. Their son, which one is
Andrew?
Andrew is here. I would not forget you.
Pero dad.
Who is this beautiful lady over here?
My sister Frances.
Yeah, Francis. So it's a family affair. They're going to talk to us about the Fort Restaurant and the gift shop, and then as it's transformed into what it is now. Correct?
Correct.
First of all, who's ever eaten at the Fort Restaurant? See, I need to get off stage because I never have. So you guys are at Paul.
All the time.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Glad
you,
you're here.
Angie.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I see some familiar faces here. I don't know everybody's name, but welcome. I'm excited to have this presentation. It dates back a long ways, and I hope to get your attention starting with the property. As we go along, if you have questions, please just raise your hand. I'll see you, and because if we wait to the end, then you're going to forget the questions, and it's like, oh, I got to fumble through the papers. So I'm happy to answer any questions anytime. So I'd like to start with a property in Mackinaw City, and we have, what we have is, we all know that Edgar Conklin founded Mackinaw City and platted this. And as you can see, we're in block 45. Block 45 is up near the top there. I might step my finger way over there. Block 45, and then just ahead of it there, he put home sites right in there. Now, I don't know exactly what date that is, but I'm assuming that was in the early or the mid to 1800s. And in this plat map, I'm sure a lot of you have seen these. This now is given to the Historical State Park. Those lots are missing now. But I believe this is 45 here. I can't see it at this angle. But what I have here, as I was going through all of my papers and files that my dad left me, is an abstract. Abstract, and the first date on it is 1854. And it's astonishing to see this. So the first ledger in here was of the United States of America, and it was sold to Edgar Conklin and several other gentlemen. Maybe some of you have researched this before. A John Mesick, a Dan Morton, Maurice, and Dudley Samuel Walker, and another Witchell. And that was in 1854. It's funny, it says here, that was June of 1854 of the date, but it was recorded, it looks like probably 11 years later in 1865. I don't know why. And you're welcome to look at these, and then it goes on and on and on, and they break it down in continuance there. It's just really, but so moving along here, I did find this interesting, and Andrew's got this up on the screen. This was a regular meeting of the board and trustees, as you can see, from the village of Mackinaw City. On January 7th, 1916, they decided they'd start to rename these streets, or a few of them anyway. So Straits Avenue is from right down along underneath the bridge. They were going to change that to Michelin-Mackinaw. Never got there. B Street, which is right behind our building, they wanted to change it from B to DePeister, and that it is today. 5th Street was Olive Louvigny, and that is on the west side of our building, and it is still Louvigny today. So whatever happened to Michelin-Mackinaw, somewhere along the way they changed it back to Straits, and then Huron. So in my abstract here, let's see, I gotta move ahead. I think Andrew's got this working. All right, oh yes. So in 19, I want to move, we can look at this later, you're welcome, I'll show you everything. In 1944, Marvel, Barrett. Some of you might be familiar with the Barretts, but it goes all the way back to 1944. He sold the property to an Alice Foy, F-O-Y. But Alice passed away in 1953, and the executors of the estate then sold it to Ernie and Aggie Wallen, which my dad purchased it from them, and I'll get to that in a second. So that was how the land of the property of the Fort Restaurant was passed down. Of course, in between 1854 and all the way up to 1944, there's a whole slew of movement there. So my dad purchased, no, wait a minute. Oh, interesting fact here. Ernie and Aggie Wallen, in 1953, due to the passing of Alice, they paid $57.53 for the property. It was for an unpaid contract, and the balance due was just $57.53. The whole contract for that piece of property at the time was $1,800. So Ernie and Aggie then built their home on that site. But before I get to all of that, I want to let you know who my dad, Fran's dad, Mom, Catherine, George and Catherine Stemkowski, and where it began. So just give you a little history on them. So Catherine was a city girl. She grew up in West Side Detroit, Southwest Side Detroit. She was born in a house where her and her two brothers grew up in. Her father, Frank, was a businessman. He was a bar owner and a restaurant owner down on 4th Street. Maybe some of you are from the Detroit area. Right downtown, right in the midst of where the car assembly plants were. They called it Victor's Bar. That was his last name. He would feed the line workers with Detroit-style chili dogs. Catherine, as she went through high school, she went to Holy Redeemer and then graduated and went on to be a secretary for Cadillac Motors in the area. George, he was born and raised here in Sheboygan on Riggsville Road. The farm is still there today. The buildings are still there. The structure of the barn and everything. Of course, it's been moved on to somebody else. They were a Polish immigrant family that took to farming potatoes. George's dad, my dad's dad, was known as the Potato King of Riggsville. Dad graduated from the Sheboygan High School and worked his way through to Michigan State. After college, he was drafted in the Army. That was in 1951. During his 2-year stint in the Army, he somehow broke his arm, and he was sent home for leave. That's where the two of them met. Dad and his few buddies, my mom and a few girlfriends from the Detroit area, all somehow went to some place in Port Huron area, and they danced and music and had the fun of the dance hall. But Dad had to go back to the Army, and during that stint continuing, they wrote love letters back and forth to one another. When Dad got out of the Army in 53, they got married. They stayed in the Detroit area for a while, and but you know, it wasn't quite Dad's things. He liked people, and he loved to sell. So he soon found himself in the insurance business. They moved to Saginaw. They built a house. He loved to hunt. Some of the pictures are back there. I believe that's from the Saginaw area. He loved to hunt, and they had dogs out in the backyard. Tippy. Yep. Eventually, they made their way to Mackinaw City. There was a local insurance salesman. His name was George Carlton. Don't know if anybody of you would remember that. George Carlton was a local insurance man, and he had his office where Julius O'Brien lives today. Some of you know where Julius lives? Well, that was an office for insurance at the time. You can tell by the front porch, kind of a leeway, that's where he had his business. Dad joined him and eventually bought him out and started his own office where the Mackinaw Bakery sits today. It was an A-frame building, and it was divided in two, split in two. Door on this side, door right there in the center. On one side was Jerry O'Brien, Julius's dad. He was a barber of the town. And on the other side was Dad's office, and that, some of you may know, Diane Fry was his secretary. At this time, Fran and I and the family, we lived in the house next to the Women's Club building. Some of you can help me with that. I believe it's Loretta and Martinick's lived there. That's the house Fran and I started when we grew up. We started right there. So now we're kind of up to date with Mom and Dad and who they were. As Dad sold insurance around the area, he noticed how the newly built bridge and the historical fort were starting to bring tourists into the area and into town. He saw the corner of Straits Avenue and Louvigny to be a good possibility for business. This is a postcard of the fort way back when. It shows the stockades there, or the prisoner things. And here, yes, military punishment, thank you. Here is a postcard I found just 2 days ago, or yesterday. It's a 1909 postcard, and on the back it is stamped 1909. Somebody sent it to somebody. Do we have that picture?
I don't have the back of it.
The back of it?
Sal and MH.
Yes, L and MH, to add this to the fair. But this was the area of the fort before it was built. Before what you see today. So he felt that corner might be a good place to start a business. So he approached the people that own it, and now that's Ernie and Aggie Wallen, because they built the home there. And here so he approached them about leasing the property. So the house to the far right is Ernie and Aggie's with those little flags hanging there. The house next to it with the car, that's the Fort Fudge Shop. And next to that is now what is an empty lot today, but that was a summer cottage of somebody's. So in front of Ernie and Aggie's, Dad approached them and said, "Can I put a hot dog stand out front here? Here's Ernie and Aggie's building right behind it." So they agreed on that, and they erected this hot dog stand. You can see with postcards, film, cold drinks, and they called it Kathy's Corner. Now remember, Mom's dad Frank had that bar in Detroit, and he sold chili dogs. Well, guess what? Chili dogs made it from Detroit to Mackinaw City in 1962. Dad, seeing the success of the hot dog stand, he asked Ernie and Aggie if he could buy the property. And they got plans together after Ernie and them made the deal. So in 1963, that's Dad in the left, they decided, or Dad designed this and got it built. Now, an interesting fact here. So, Dad was able to secure 2 loans from 2 different banks. The first loan was for $35,000. And you'll be surprised what the interest rate was. 6%.
Oh,
He then went to another bank, same year, and he got another loan only for $15,000 at 6% again. Then in 1964, apparently it was in the transition or needed more money, he went to my mom's dad, Frank, and they signed a contract of some sort of a loan, and that was for $32,000, and that also was 6%. So the interest rates really haven't changed a lot for all these years. So as you can see in this picture, you're probably wondering where everything was on the inside. To the front of the building, that's facing Straits Avenue, this is Lou Vigny. To the front of the building is the restaurant half. To the back of the building was the gift shop. And upstairs, he made a full-size living quarters upstairs. Very big apartment. It's a home, I should say. Fran and I, we lived there for years. We grew up. Some of the pictures I have back there will show us. This is a full wraparound, fenced-in, chain-link fence deck. I don't know how big it was. It was huge, wasn't it, Fran?
Oh, yeah. I remember being up there and behind the sign, I was eating watermelon, and I'd spit watermelon down at the customers. Never hit them, but they landed on the ground.
They didn't know where the watermelon
I
seeds
know,
were.
I hid behind the sign.
So, there's the complete building. Okay, now, behind me here is some paintings that Lloyd Daisy has, and many of you are familiar with Lloyd. He painted that along the wall. Dad asked him to paint some pictures of some Native Americans and a chief here, and he hung those, in the restaurant area. I have a picture, I just couldn't find it. But it was inside the building there. We did have a picture of some of the waitresses. Yes, here's a picture of a waitress here, and I found another one's laying up there. They wore, to keep in the theme of everything, they wore the Indian dress, and that was the uniform for the waitresses. The picture back there, some of you probably noticed, it was Florence Tracy. And my mom, and a very good-looking tourist, is what it says. So, anyway, so here we are in the, okay, here is a picture. Yep, the restaurant's going good. Bob Heilman, some of you remember Bob Heilman. Him and my dad were high school buddies. They played football together, they played baseball together, they even stayed a week at either's house and back and forth to practices. But anyway, they came and they were both businessmen. And Bob bought that piece of property to the left of the building. And if you could see it with a magnifying glass, it says Fort Fudge. And that was the building in prior slide that we had. They took the front of it off and then just made a building right on the sidewalk there. Okay, and then we're on to the next here. So there's Fran and I on the porch, growing up.
Aren't we cute?
Fran Fran and I growing up, I find myself standing like that today. You can see I have my little holster guns on there, my little cap guns, and Fran has a dowel. And you can see very few trees going out onto the straits. It's quite open there. And of course, here we are in the living space there. Here are some of the, Roy has these pictures, some of the local businessmen that were the founders of a lot of businesses here in town. Some of you may know Sublatoka to the left, Earl Vent, my dad, George. Roy, you probably know this guy in the fur trader hat.
Is that young Ray Daisy?
It may be, it may be. And then Neil Downing, standing there with the French, and Ray Daisy here at the end with the British. And these gentlemen really pushed for many things, the pageant, the bridge walk, so much for Mackinaw City. Neil Downing started Audis, Ray Daisy had gift shops, Earl Vent had motels, Sublatoka had the IGA, and other businesses too. Here's a picture I found. As you can see, it's a picture of a Native American. He was a real chief. His name was Willard. He lived in St. Ignace, and he would come every day on the Greyhound bus. And he would get off and stand out in front of our store. He would have his drum dressed just like that, and he would have a little pot there for tips. So he worked for tips for taking pictures. I felt it was my job, so every day I waited for that bus, and as I was eating my cereal, I saw the bus pull up, the great big bus, and I would put down my spoon, and I'd grab my little headdress I had and my drum, and I'd say to Mom, I gotta go to work. And off I would go, and I'd stand there for hours on end taking pictures with this chief, Willard. He took me under his wing, and he named me Little White Feather, and I've never forgotten it. As you can see, on that picture, there isn't any trees hiding that beautiful stockade of a fort. There's nothing there. What a marketing tool it was when people would drive up and see that fort. Today we have trees in front of it, but you can just see it clearly. It really was a marketing tool. So, moving on. So the restaurant, in the form that it was, ran from 1963 to 1971. And Dad had visited Las Vegas several times. If you've been out there, you'll remember the buffets or the smorgasbord back in the 70s. They called it smorgasbords. But he felt that maybe that's a good idea to bring back to Mackinaw City, to bring back to northern Michigan. So he did. So he started construction, and he put it all together. And by 1972, it was completed. Now this is a postcard showing the completed building, the inside of the building, and a very large buffet. It was the largest buffet. It was the only buffet up here at the time. We sat 300 people at the most biggest event we had. It had a full service bar, and the downstairs now was a complete full gift shop. Dad added fudge and other homemade candies in 1974. Well, that's my job. I started, he hired a gentleman to teach me how to make candy. So in 1974, when I was 13, that's where I was, in the corner making candy. Now, just a little fun fact here. So, to build that building, he had to go for more loans. So, he went to Citizens National Bank at the time, and he got himself a $100,000 in a loan. Now, this interest rate kind of went up a little bit. 1971 from 1963. He was paying 8.5% on that $100,000. And a year later, he went and got a $50,000 loan, and that again was 8.5%. So, I have some menus here. Maybe you had a chance to peek at them or not. When Dad started the business, he said, we'll have a breakfast buffet and it'll be $1.99. All you can eat. Now on that buffet you would think, okay, well it can't be much. No, it was. We had blueberry pancakes, French toast, your choice of scrambled eggs. We had sausage, ham, bacon, home fries, hash browns, biscuits and gravy. We had fresh fruit and juice, all for $1.99. Dad's motto was this: if he could get the people there in the morning for breakfast, he could get them back for dinner at night. And he lived with that. And so the $1.99 stuck for a long time. He also had an idea. He had to sell the bar. The bar business was okay, but you don't, in a buffet, you eat more than you drink. It's not a drinking location. And we brought some goblets back there, souvenir goblets, and he came up with an idea calling it the Cannonball. Again, the Fort theme, the Cannonball drink. And with that, the host would go around and present that to the people that are being seated. And he said the presentation was, and we serve this Cannonball drink for $3 or $3.50, and you get to take the goblet home with you. Well, we went through thousands of those. Back there on the table, you're probably wondering, why do they have a recipe on there? Well, the Fort restaurant was known for the famous bread pudding. The crew, including my wife, people would come all around for that bread pudding dessert, and they asked for the recipe, and you can see it there. But when you go home, you're never going to be able to duplicate it because it makes how much, honey?
Oh, jeez, we had big tubfuls we made.
Big tubs. So moving along, Mackinaw City had a fudge festival. Well, we decorated our truck and we had fudge in the back, both down. So we were into everything. We were trying to be part of the whole community there. So we were in the fudge festival. Because of the size of the building, and Roy reminded me of this today, because of the size of the building holding 300 people, it was the only place around in Mackinaw that could do that. So we hosted many weddings, many proms, many well, we had this motorcycle group they called it the Gold Wings, and there was 500 to 1,000 Gold Wings show up. Well, they had to eat because they rode throughout the night I believe it was a fundraiser, yes. And we hosted them. And then we had sports booster dinners, Lions Club events, all kinds of big things. So in 1984, the local Chamber of Commerce hosted the Soap Opera Festival from Mackinaw City to Mackinac Island.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oops, that was the recipe.
Around here somewhere.
Yep, so that's the buffet again. So in 1984, the local chamber hosted the festival for soap operas. Well, it included a famous comedian. Well, we put the name up there in case you couldn't recognize him. So there he is, Milton Berle. Here I am in the background with the blue shirt and blue tie. And it was really exciting to see them there. So the restaurant ran like this for many, many years, just constantly turning people. Of course, we had to raise our prices just a little bit. I think the buffet then went to $2.79. And that included everything. We didn't take anything away. Yes, not even a whole dollar. So in 1986, Dad got critically ill. He was out in Las Vegas, and he recovered, as you knew. After recovering, he decided to sell the Fort Restaurant and Gift Shop to me. So I took it over in 1988. I have a fun fact here. The loan that Dad sold me the business to in 1988 was not 6%, was not 8.5%. Geez, Chuck, I'm not buying nothing from you. Was 10%. That was the going rate, and that was steep as today's economy is. 18 would have been really high.
Well, it was that back then.
Yes. So, but Dad continued, even though he sold the business to me, he continued to show up every day to make sure things were still running smoothly. I met Vicki, my wife, in 1991. We ran the business together. Oh, I might add this. What year did you start working for my dad? Or how old were you?
I was 16.
She was 16 years old, and we met in 1991. Of course, I knew of her, but we didn't get together until 1991. Her and I ran the restaurant until 1997. Then we transformed it into what we have today, which is the all retail upstairs and downstairs. However, we've added a few things upstairs. This is in one of the towers, and we added this playhouse. I thought to myself, you see Burger King, McDonald's, when those playhouses were in the restaurants, I thought, if we could get something to keep the kids busy and give the parents time to shop, they'll buy more souvenirs and gifts, maybe some more fudge. So this area up there was quite big, and it's a tower, the first tower. And I took this I made this drawing of this idea of a cabin, and with 2 fort stockades, you can see this one here and that one. There's 2 of them with lookouts. It resembles the fort across the street, and this is what we got to do, I said. So I hired a construction worker, and he put it all together. You can walk through there, a human. It's about this high, and you can walk through it. Just watch your head, stand up, go up the stairs, and it's got a tunnel underneath, and it goes all through it and comes out at the bottom here. Kids just love it. Keep coming back every year, even after they've grown up. So, also, inside there was a cooler where we kept all of the salads and stuff. Behind the walls there was a large walk-in cooler. And by now, of course, we closed it for a restaurant. And what was hanging from the cooler were these light bulbs that were encased in a grid for protection and glass, so in case they broke, it wouldn't be into the food. So that was for a health thing. And I looked at those and just stared at them for a while, standing in that cooler. And I said, this would make a great cave. So I hired Tim Romanowski, local guy here, and we made a cave out of it. And then to add to that, we took the salad bar, stainless steel long salad bar, about 14 feet long, and made a sluice out of it. So today, people can come upstairs, they buy the dirt from us downstairs, preloaded dirt with gems, and we call it gold, but it's fool's gold. And they can sift it out in the water there and panning for gold. Now, it's dark in there, and so we give them a headlight like this, and we haven't had one complaint. The kids just love it. So it's a Mackinaw mining company. So we revamped and reutilized the spaces there. Which picture you got there? Okay, that just shows us that we've progressed and made all kinds of new things and continue to make candies and gifts and everything. Do we have a picture of Mom at this? Okay. This is the new generation coming up. This is Andrew, candy maker, and his older brother Jason, candy maker. This is a new generation moving in. Hopefully Mom and I can retire someday. I do have one. Oh, we have more fun facts.
Fun facts.
Oh, fun facts. This is interesting. So the restaurant, they were in 5-gallon buckets. So each day, the crew would make up 4 5-gallon buckets of pancake mix. We'd go through 100 pounds of potatoes, 5 cases of sausage, and those cases were 20 pounds, so that's 100 pounds of sausage. And then 4 cases of eggs, and those cases were 48 big, 48 dozen. 5-gallon buckets of fresh fruit, 3 5-gallons, 40 pounds of bacon, as you can see, 10 loaves of bread, 40 pounds of ham, 50 pounds of potato salad, 35 pounds of cod, 72 pounds of chicken, and 30 pounds of ribs.
Oh.
Now that's just one day. That's not all week. That was one day that had to be cooked and moved out and sold.
More fun facts.
We have more fun facts. So we have a candy, like I said, in 1974, Dad put the fudge shop in there. So today, the boys, Mom and I, we all work at it. We go through 3 tons of sugar in a year, 2 tons of chocolate, 1 ton of brown sugar, a ton of corn syrup, 2 tons of taffy, 600 pounds of butter, and of course, evaporated milk, 500, 10 cans. Those are the big ones that, that are industrial at school or whatnot, the big ones. 500 of those a year.
Got more fun facts.
Okay. Now, when the restaurant was up and running, we would have at the minimum of 40 employees in the restaurant and 8 employees in the gift shop area.
Another fun fact.
Yep. Now, I wish Sister Chris was here, because I remember her saying in her history of St. Anthony, she had the dirt. Well, I don't know, this is more of a fun fact than it is dirt. But anyway, the land itself was across, of course, from historical Fort Mackinaw. And that whole area was an Indian burial ground. And many bones and everything have been found there. However, one day, Bob Heilman had his store up and running. They had dug the basement for the store half of the store that's there now, because they only started with half a store. And it was all completed, and I walked in and out of Bob's store like I was his own son. And anyway, I was goofing around and went to the basement there, and underneath the stairwell was a wheelbarrow. And it was full of bones and skulls. I thought, and I was probably only about 6 or 7, maybe 5. And I got, hey Bob, what are all that? What's this? He looked at me and he said, they're just a bunch of dead people. Well, that was Bob. I have no idea whatever happened to those. Of course, that was 58 years ago. So, let's see where I'm at on this one. That's the Indian Miracle. So where are you at on the pictures there? So that was the dirt.
Labor Day.
So here's my mom. Here's my mom, Catherine. And she helped us sell Labor Day bridge walk shirts. Of course, she was not going to walk the bridge, so she wore that one.
Sold a lot of those, didn't you?
Oh yeah, she was the biggest salesperson out front. She would direct the people in to sell. So that concludes all of my history. We have caramel corn back there. We have fudge in those little sample boxes. All those pictures. Oh, I didn't mention anything about the blueprints there. And if you take a look at those, you'll see, all the dimensions and how they did it and when they did it. It's really quite interesting. You're welcome to take home. We have pamphlets back there, a souvenir coin. We still have the machines that give out the souvenir coins that are dropped there. As you can see from those plaques, the Fort Restaurant hosted many Lions Club dinners and things. And so we were always being recognized for that, as you can see by many plaques. Dad was recognized by the pageant committee. And later on, I was recognized by the pageant, and of course, many by the Lions Club. So it goes way, way back into that. Pictures of my grandparents, Fran's grandparents there too, Frank and Margaret. I think that's my mom's graduation picture back there. But is there any questions? Oh,
I
good.
might have missed it, but when did you close the restaurant?
1997, after that summer, Vicky was pregnant with Andrew. We were short of help,
Sure.
and we went through the whole summer. And Vicky, he was born in October, so all through the summer, we were short of help, and she was running the kitchen,
Oh,
and I was trying to run the bar and the thing. We only had a couple waitresses, a couple cooks, and I was cleaning until 3 in the morning, mopping and getting the grease
Jeez.
off. Finally, she came to me and she says, "I can't do this anymore. This is enough." So we closed that down, and at the same time, my dad had another building, and he had closed that down for the time being. And Vicky says, "Why don't we take that?" And that turned out to be the I-75 Plaza. So we started working that in the next year, and it just slowly built up to a
Okay.
really nice business with a lot less employees and a lot less headaches.
Sure, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any others back there? Interest? Yes, Angie. You got your mouth full of
Explain the
cookies.
garb, sweetheart.
Pardon me?
Explain.
Oh,
You're
well,
wearing this
I
amazing
thought I
outfit.
would do this to put the theme into it, being the fort, Michelin Mackinaw, and being the fort across the street. Dad, I think we have a picture of him. He played in the pageant up until he couldn't play anymore.
Ezekiel Sullivan.
Ezekiel Sullivan, yep. He was very active in the Mackinaw City, the council. He was 12 years at the council. But this outfit here is a pageant uniform, and I was okay to wear it tonight. So, if any of you would like to look at this abstract, I welcome you to come up and look at the dates and who it was to and how it was divided. The one thing hang on one second, I'll give you the gist of this. So Edgar Conklin, well, as you know of him, he this is interesting. There's an affidavit in relation to title to a real estate situated in Block 43 and Block 44 of Mackinaw City. James Conklin, which was a nephew, was duly sworn and deposes and says, "I am 74 years past of the age, and I'm a resident of Franklin, Nebraska, where I have resided most of my life until 1886. From that birth until the year of 1886, I was a resident of the city of Springfield," must have been Illinois. Yes, it was. "And I'm informed that the following conveyance appears of record in office of deeds in Emmet County. Warranted deed September of 1881, given by Edgar Conklin to James Conklin." So he's saying that I am his nephew, and Edgar died, and so this is my property. So then he moved on to sell it to other people along the line. So that's what I have. Oh, I have a question.
When your dad bought that property, was that when the fort entrance was right across the street there?
Absolutely, yes.
So this was a prime location.
It was a very good location. The parking, the entrance of the fort was all behind it there. You can see it in that one postcard. And we were really saddened when they decided to move that parking lot and create a Mackinaw welcome center under the bridge, because then they had their own parking and closed that off to
So this would be
parking.
the corner right there.
Yeah, there's the parking lot there. You can see it in the postcard. Yep, there it is there. That whole, see those cars there, the parking lot where the finger is there. So that was really handy. They bought the tickets there and then would walk in and do their thing and then walk out, and we would be right there. It was really beneficial. Now, many of you may remember or didn't know, but I will tell you, on the other side of the bridge, where the welcome parking lot is there, that was where a park is today. That was all a campground. all a campground. Now, the lighthouse still stood there, but in and amongst all those trees was a very large state campground. And people loved it because you're right there at the straits looking over. The park later on closed that and just made it into a walking park like it is today. Yeah, Fran?
Remember we had Ellen Kurbaway
Yes.
when we lived up on up there.
Yeah.
And she'd come up every summer and she'd take care of us and walk downstairs.
Yes.
And they always wore a uniform, wasn't it? A
The Indian uniform.
Indian uniform.
So Dad and Mom were very busy running the restaurant and gift shop. And so this Ellen Kurbaway she speaks of was a family that they met in Saginaw. And this was their daughter. And so she was kind of like a nanny to us, raising us, because I was probably only 4 and Fran was maybe 9. And so she would come up and be a nanny and stay with us and work also in the restaurant. So it worked out really good. We made contact with her last year. So, any other questions? Yes, sir.
I notice a lot of your advertisement signs aren't too flagrant. They're subdued, a little small. And is there rules around here that you can't do something like?
Well, back then, these were quite large signs. That tells you how big the thing was. I believe those were about 4 foot tall on the upstairs here. All of those were about 4 foot tall, 3 to 4 foot tall, and about 8 feet long.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those were very big.
Yeah.
And he hung them up there. Now this one here in the front, obviously is probably a 3 by 3. And then, yeah, so the restrictions back then were much different than they are today. Any other questions there?
You're open.
Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And please get up and come look at some of the artifacts.
Do you have another
take
one?
pictures.
You're open year round.
Yep, come November, it's just Saturdays and Sundays only.
Okay, cause I walk around there all the time.
Yep, 9 to 5 every day, up until November, Saturdays and
Yeah.
Sundays. Or stop on in and get one.
They must have followed
And at our
us
other
in
store,
October.
next to the Shell gas station there, the I-75 Plaza, it's open 7 days a week, year round, 9 to 5.
I think I've eaten more spaghetti dinners.
Oh, yeah, now I know.
Yep, right next to the Shell gas
I was
station.
trying to figure out what, because I don't
Get
see
one in
it.
there?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it was.
Yeah.
You want a picture?
Yep, and then our
You guys own that also?
we don't own the gas station.
There we
That's Barney Castle. It's not-
You own the building?
Yep, we own the building right
I'm
next
still
to it.
taping, just give me 1 second.
Okay.
I walk around there all the time. Yeah, I live right near the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
From Julius. It's such